In today's video, I get to play as a wannabe detective talking about the mystery of the black metal band supposedly from Baghdad, Iraq, Seeds of Iblis. About a decade ago, in the start of the 2010s, there was a lot of buzz going off on internet forums in the underground metal scene that there was a black metal group that called themselves the Arabic Anti-Islamic Legion that consisted of three bands, that being Tadnees, Janaza, and Seeds of Iblis. The main source as to why this group was getting so much buzz in the underground metal scene during that time is not so much of the music that was being played, but more of the context and themes surrounding it. As some of the information has been brought forth to the public about this band is that the story goes, this is a black metal band from Baghdad, Iraq. It's mainly composed by a woman named Anahita, which goes by the stage name Janaza. And her deep hatred for the Islamic faith all stems from the fact during her early childhood, her parents were killed in the crossfires of Muslim extremists. With the knowledge of that backstory about her, it ties in together as to why the projects that she is a part of has lyrical themes that are just so vulgarly anti-Islamic. But this is where things get a bit head-scratching the more you dive into the information provided online about this band. As I stated, they're from Baghdad, Iraq. They're an anti-Islamic black metal band, mainly composed by a woman. As you can see, they're from Iraq, a country that holds their religious values to just such a high degree that talking down upon it may result in the punishment of death. Because of that, the band states that they try to be as anonymous as possible to safeguard their identities from the authoritative figures that protect and uphold the Islamic faith. Regardless of context, for anyone who keeps up with black metal, it's really not that much of a standout really anymore if a black metal artist decides to be anonymous or takes like silhouette band photos of themselves to really conceal their identities. So that wasn't really the thing that made me really scratch my head when you kind of revisit the information about them, but more of the fact that the band photos that they provide to the public is just straight up plagiarism. In a report published by the Metal Illuminati back in 2012, this website points out the fact that a lot of the photos that the group provides to the public are forged. First example comes from their debut release, Jihad Against Islam. The 7-inch provides a band photo within the credits of the packaging, and as you can see within the picture of the guitarist Yusef, it's basically a mirrored shot from the guitarist from the band Volterlord. Second example comes from the band Tadnees within that group. The band photo is a switcheroo, basically a mirror shot of a German black metal band called Mork. And the final example comes from the supposed front woman herself, Anahita, with her project Janaza. The photo used is from a Mexican photographer named Raul Gonzalez that was used when he was doing a photo shoot called the Black Metal Barbie. With all that said, let's take a moment to appraise the Metal Illuminati for calling out all the mistakes from a report done by Kim Kelly. Wow, shocker, Kim Kelly messed up. Who would have seen that coming? But it's not just the blatant forgery of the band photos that has a lot of people questioning the authenticity about this band, but more so the fact the inconsistency of the biography of each band member supposedly a part of it. Because there are two other projects a part of the Arabic Anti-Islamic Legions that I didn't bring up because there's really no information provided anywhere online other than on the Metal Archives, that being Mosque of Satan and False Allah. It's stated in some interviews online that the members of these projects used to reside in Saudi Arabia but migrated to Iraq to start a music project within, again, the Arabic anti-Islamic black metal scene, which just doesn't really make any sense why you would risk your lives just to migrate to Iraq to start black metal. Then there's the Atlantic report done by the one and only Kim Kelly, who supposedly actually interviewed Janaza. But instead of interviewing her by phone, it was all done through text, which makes it quite suspicious. But for the most part, I'm just echo chambering all this stuff that you could find online. There's a few other hidden details about this group that I personally found out that no one really brings up that, again, raises more questions about them. For one, on their Bandcamp, it says that they're from Iraq. Yes, from fucking Iraq, where we have to spit some curses. I know that's just a few words of a sentence right there stating where they're from, but that just comes off so insanely disingenuous. I get the fact that they've been around for a decade and people continuously question where they're from, but having to like say it like that is equivalent to calling out someone who says a lot of racist remarks and they get all defensive and just go, "I'm not fucking racist." Like, it's just, as I stated, so insanely disingenuous to state that you're from fucking Iraq to just make it all the more obnoxious. And the final piece of evidence that I can give you that I question their true authenticity is from their debut album. The closing track on it is called Allah is Dead. And the lyrics are really brief, and it goes, "Behind all the stories, behind all the surahs, behind all the Islamic books, there is an absolute truth. In Muhammad's head he was born, and raised with hate towards the world. Open your eyes, Allah is dead for centuries." Okay, this is where I'm going to admit I'm getting a bit nerdy, but when it comes to being blasphemous with any religion within art, I feel like you need like a basic kind of understanding of the theology of said religion you're going to target. Typically, when it comes to being blasphemous with any lyrical themes, especially the Christian faith, which a lot of metal bands target, they'll typically bring up the fact that Jesus was the Messiah, but he's usually the fake Messiah, and criticize him with basically the stories all about him. And while that may seem edgy and basic, it still has at least a, entry-level fundamental knowledge of the faith. When it comes to Islam, Allah is not a man. He was never born or created in this world. He's a consciousness. So to state that he is dead kind of comes off with the lack of knowledge of how said belief of Islam goes. Like, I get the fact that you're trying to be as hateful as possible and be as negative as you can towards this religion. I understand that. But if this band is supposedly legitimately from Iraq, wouldn't they have like the basic understanding of how this religion kind of works if you're growing up in that environment? Which just really implies, to me at least in some aspects, that this isn't a band from Iraq. It's just some anonymous person from God knows fucking where, just trying to make edgy, hateful black metal to appeal to edgy, hateful fans within the scene. At this point in the video, you're probably thinking, why are you stating this video the mystery of Seeds of Iblis when everything you're talking about, you're dismantling the truth about them that they present? See, this is where I get a bit emotional, and I'm going to sound like such a boomer talking about this, but the saying goes with that Morbid Angel shirt that it's extreme music for extreme people. Kind of fits just the vibe of this band. Because let's just say now this band is legit. The Arabic anti-Islamic legions is real. The implications that this band is trying to be as anonymous as possible to shield themselves from the Iraqi government makes total sense. And let's just say with the band photos, which are obviously factually forged, are purposely meant to misguide people towards their true identities is the main reason. Again, that could be an alibi that kind of makes sense with why they would do that. Although personally, as a side note, they should have just never have used band photos to begin with to truly stay anonymous, but again, that's just my 2 cents. Then there's this documentary done by Vice called Heavy Metal in Baghdad. It follows a metal band in Iraq called Akrasa Kauda. It's a really interesting, well-done documentary that you can watch the whole thing here on YouTube, so I'll have a link provided in the description to where you can check it out in its entirety, showcasing all the difficulties and secrecies that this band had to do to just play as a metal band, which gives me this idea that the environment that, again, if Seeds of Iblis is a real legit band, would have to endure just to play as a band in Iraq. Then there's the argument that I've had with people when I was getting into Seeds of Iblis that discredit them for being legit, because when you listen to anti-Quran rituals, the production value for black metal is really high end, and a lot of people wonder, well, if this band's trying to be so secret and they're really kind of limited to their resources out of Iraq, how can they make a black metal record sound this good? And I've always felt like this was a weak argument because there are bands out there within these Middle Eastern countries that play in secrecy and make the production value sound high-end. The best example that I can give you from a legit band from a Middle Eastern country, and they're from Saudi Arabia, is the black metal band called Al-Namrood. Definitely check these guys out, but it's stated within some interviews from these guys that when they go to recording and rehearsals, everything is done in a makeshift home studio with just, basic PCs and recording equipment that you could probably get at a Best Buy. Like, it's nothing high end, and a lot of their records sound stellar for production value wise. So the argument that they're not legit because it sounds too good really has no strong foundation to it when legitimate bands that are real and legit, no questions or concerns about it, still pull it off. The last bit of evidence that I noticed that is really compelling, at least for me, is look at the timeline within the discography of Seeds of Iblis and every other band that is posted within the metal archives, both from either Iraq or Iran. And strangely enough, they all kind of relate with each other within releases within their discography. For example, when you look at their debut full-length album, Anti-Quran Rituals, it was released in 2013. Seeds of Iblis would be silent for 7 years until their next release, which is their sophomore full-length album, Morbid Muhammad, came out in 2020. Interestingly enough, when you look at every band within the metal archives that's from either Iraq or Iran, which there isn't much, so you can use as much time as possible as you want, you're going to notice nearly all of them are silent between the years of, like, again, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. There's, like, next to nothing being released by any of these bands within those countries. I came across this website called Wilson Center that has a whole timeline of everything that happened within Iraq and the surrounding countries with it, and if your history's good of what happened 6 and 7 years ago, ISIS came into the picture around that time. And as you could imagine, the timeline is just this massive laundry list of just bombings and ISIS takeovers and hijacks and just airstrikes that makes the environment just seem so war-torn that creating music of any kind for the civilians of the surrounding area seems just so unimportant as your lives are kind of at stake. But again, this is all just speculation. It's something that just kind of conveniently fits within the timeline. For all I know, the individual behind Seeds of Iblis, who may be an imposter or just someone who's not legitimately from Iraq, wrote the album and waited however amount of years until it was convenient enough and believable enough to release the album to make it look legit within the environment of Iraq during that time. So again, I'm really just going off just some kind of like emotional speculation with it. I feel like I've stated everything that needs to be said about this band of information that you can find about them online and speculating with the timeline within them, asking or not the mystery behind Seeds of Iblis. For my closing remarks, I'll just leave it at this. I honestly like the music that this band puts out. Anti-Quran Rituals overall is a really solid album that blends traditional black metal with kind of like this Middle Eastern aesthetic and vibe kind of laced together with their songwriting. And it's overall just really solid black metal that you guys should definitely check out. And regardless if this band is legitimately from Baghdad, Iraq, or it's just some dude in the, I don't know, backwood ends of Colorado, it's just overall really solid black metal regardless, and I like the music that this band puts out. But I'm really curious to know, guys, what you think of this whole situation. If there's anything that you guys can add to the story that kind of adds or subtracts the legitimacy of this band, I'm all ears for it. And that is that. So like always, guys, make sure you guys drink plenty of water to stay hydrated, and have a great day.